Hey guys, I want to do a key review of a key I've recently played in the Priory of the Sacred Flame on level 13 from the point of view of a preservation evoker. So we're not a pre-made group, it's just myself and random people from the dungeon tool. And we do the first pull of the guard captain in the beginning into the corner so the tank can't get knocked back. Quite a few mistakes in this dungeon by myself, which I'm not particularly happy with, starting right here. So first of all, I don't use any of my defensives, neither Renewing Blaze, nor Obsidian Scales, nor Zephyr, which I should always use for the first Thunderclap, and then I stand in the trap and die immediately. So many keys end at this point. Luckily I do get combat rest and manage to get the Zephyr out for the second Thunderclap, and then subsequently sort of crisis manage the point from this point forward. I've lost my lust, I've also lost my stasis, which I had set up before I died. Yeah, so they're not ideal, but we do manage to get the pull done. Actually the tank also standing in the trap right here. I might have dispelled him with Cauterizing Flame, which is actually one of the good things about Preservation Evoker in this first part of the dungeon, and in quite a few dungeons in this season overall, is that you can dispel bleeds. There are some nasty bleeds going on across different keys. Also with the next pull, which is Sergeant Chainmail, who jumps on top of individual players and applies a bleed debuff. And there she is. It's actually possible to dodge the jump if you see it coming and move laterally or blink out of the way, as I tried to do right there. But actually I don't think it was aimed for me, it was aimed for the Warlock. But if you start moving to the right or to the left and you're a bit farther away, at the point where she starts jumping, then she's not going to hit you even if you don't have any movement enhancing abilities. Compared to the first pull, this pull is much easier to manage as a healer, because while there is a lot of spot healing going on for the people who have gotten the bleeds, there's not really any sort of super dangerous group damage going out, so there's not particularly high risk of anyone dying. You see that I've already mismanaged my mana somehow, probably sent out too many temporal anomalies, and I sort of used this pull and the next one to try and get some mana back. And it's a bit of a theme for the rest of the dungeon where I feel like I'm constantly out of mana. Still working on optimizing, integrating disintegrates into my rotation. That's also why I use Emerald Communion here, because it has a mana regenerating effect. It's not really necessary as a heal at this point, but just getting the cooldown on it and getting some mana back, especially with how little mana I have, might be very worthwhile here. Luckily this pull, once Chainmail is dead, is very easy. There's not a lot of damage going on, so you can see that I'm spamming disintegrates as much as possible, because I play Energy Loop to regenerate the mana that I've lost.
Flame strike.
So this pull, yeah, it's a bit of a point where you can just try and get your cooldowns back, try to get your mana back on track, because the next pulls will be more challenging again. But there's essentially not much going on here, except for not standing in the traps, which I've already proven I'm not an expert in. So what I essentially do is just apply a couple of hots to my teammates, so that any sort of damage that they take is passively being healed away. We skip the pack at the top here, because it's just nasty with the pot shots and the lynxes. It's always good to skip it. Almost did manage to pull it here, but in the end nobody did. And we run straight to the back to pull the woman with the reflective shield. I'm not exactly sure what her name is. High Priestess Amir. And this pull also very easy to heal usually. The only thing to watch out for a little bit is the tank damage. Some tanks take a lot of damage here, especially if you're playing with a pug, and if they're a paladin, then I have a feeling that they take even more. And during the reflective shield you want to have some sort of healing on the rest of your damage dealers, but generally you can just use this pull to do damage yourself and interrupt the defend casts so that you don't lose any time to the damage reduction that the cast provides. At this point I don't feel particularly good about the key because I'm really angry at myself that I got hit by the trap in the beginning, and just also the whole healing rotation that I've been doing. I feel like I'm not planning ahead. I'm more behind trying to crisis manage, so sort of like in a PvP healing situation where you can't really plan exactly for what's coming up. And I gradually try to improve that during the dungeon, and I do get better at it in the end with the paladins and so on. That's part of the dungeon that I'm more happy with how I played. But at this point we're just doing relatively safe pulls. Not much can go wrong on this one either, unless you get hit by the Ember Storm, but it's really easy to dodge. And once again I just apply some basic hots to my teammates so that they get healed back up if they get hit by a fireball or something. Might be doing that too much if the group is controlling the packs well, but I sometimes lean toward overhealing more strongly than to run after people after they've taken damage. Sorry, my PC does that sometimes with the lags. It's gonna be over in a second. So in this pull you need to be careful once again regarding the Disrupting Shout, which is going out now, and I do manage to get locked, but at least I managed to top the group before it came out, so that nobody took too much damage from it. But other than that, this pull also isn't very dangerous, but you need to be sure. Ideally have a defensive out like Zephyr when the Disrupting Shout goes out, and which it does now again. I tried to top the Paladin beforehand because he has a bleed debuff. I did manage to get out the time dilation, so because he was rather low, he might have lived, might not have without it, because of the Disrupting Shout. And usually a good way to do spot healing with Evoker is to just echo and then reversion. It applies the golden hour effect, which is basically that the target receives some healing based on the amount of damage that they've taken beforehand. So if someone has a very high ticking hot or something dot, then it makes sense to just spam echo reversion, echo reversion. Might also throw in a echo verdant embrace in there. Now this first boss is rather simplistic, I would say. One good thing about Evoker here as well is that you're able to dispel the bleed every once in a while. I tend to just do it on cooldown because I don't really know when the tank would prefer it or not, because we're not in voice. Then there's the Holy Radiance cast, which is basically a pulsing AoE, but it's not very dangerous compared to other pulsing AoEs, so just a bit of basic setup when it's coming up. Echo, echo, echo on your 3 DPS, then Verdant Embrace yourself to apply Lifebind to all, to the whole group, and then you just cast one Spirit Bloom, and essentially the damage has been negated. Not what I did here, but it also doesn't really matter because the damage is so low. Perhaps on higher keys one would need to be more careful with how exactly one tries to heal the pulsing AoE damage. Yeah, and then it's essentially just focusing on the tank. A lot of tank healing. yeah, I'm really not very happy with how I'm playing this. You see that I casted the Spirit Bloom before the Holy Radiance went out because I had already started my stasis, which I shouldn't have started to begin with because we do a very big Bloodlust pull next pull, and it has 6 Paladins, which casts Sacred Toll, which is a big AoE hit, and you really want stasis ready for that pull. And it's allowed to use stasis on this boss at the beginning, but not like I just did here at the end, because you really want to have it ready for the next big Paladin pull. Luckily, Preservation Evoker has a very good kit of dealing with the Paladins, so especially on this key level. Higher levels might be more difficult, but yeah, it's not very difficult to deal with the Paladin AoE usually, especially because you have rewind as an emergency sort of oh shit button. So I apply reversion to one person doesn't have it. So okay, the Sacred Toll goes out. I use my Tip the Scales to immediately top them with Spirit Bloom, and then I Zephyr to just sort of take the sting out of the coming ones. And what I like to do is just keep the 4 Living Flames from my Fire Breath in reserve. So if ever I don't have something ready in my usual rotation, like a Spirit Bloom right now, then I can shoot the 4 Living Flames, which I just did, which is also a big AoE heal to top the group back up. My stasis did come back up during the fight, which is good, but you can see that we didn't really take any significant damage from the Sacred Toll, and probably could have healed a number more of them. We also didn't have to use our Rewind or our Emerald Communion. Although it should be noted that Emerald Communion is good in this situation, but it also takes some planning. So you really want to use it when you have Lifebind on your teammates. So echo your teammates, then Verdant Embrace yourself, so that there's Lifebind between all of you, and then Emerald Communion will heal a lot. Otherwise it will only heal yourself and then one additional target if you have full HP, which can be... It's still a lot of healing, but for big AoE hits it's not usually very good. So generally, as a Preservation Evoker, if you plan well with these Paladins, then they are quite easy to deal with, unless a lot of these random fireballs and smites go out, which are dangerous. Like this, I just got hit by that. Probably should have just used the defensive preemptively anyway. I use Rewind here because I didn't plan correctly, and so I didn't have my Verdant Embrace. I echoed my teammates. I didn't have my Verdant Embrace. Also didn't have the Spirit Bloom. And if the next Sacred Toll is coming in, then you just need to press something, and yeah, so I pressed Rewind. Not particularly good play, but it's ready, so it's okay, I guess. So I set up already for the next Sacred Toll with the echoes on my teammates, but then I don't... yeah, I probably set up too early again. So then if you echo your teammates and then the Sacred Toll isn't incoming yet, then you essentially just stand there and wait until it comes, and you can't do any spells because that would trigger the echoes which you've set up to be used in conjunction with Verdant Embrace. So I choose to just use Dream Breath instead. Here I use my Communion, sort of a bit of a panic reaction to dropping very low because the cast went through. And yeah, so I'm very happy with how I played the first pack of Paladins, but yeah, this could have taken more concentration. So usually it should be like this. You have Lifebind on all your teammates, then you cast Spirit Bloom and everybody's topped. And ideally you find the time to apply Reversion to all of your targets, because you will get a healing buff from your targets having Reversion. I think it's 10% or 15, I think it's 10. So we do manage to pull this room rather well, and now we get to the Baron Brownpike. I think it's fixed. I think the spell queuing is now clear. I think he casts his Sacrificial Pyre, and then he casts Castigator's Shield. So you shouldn't soak the Pyre until the Castigator's Shield cast is out. because this will be a big AoE hit. At least in this run it was like that, so I already precast Spirit Bloom to heal the damage from the Castigator shield immediately. In my experience before, sometimes he didn't cast the Castigator shield at all. Not sure if that's still the case, but what I do is I just plan for this sequence. He casts the Pyre, and then I expect the Castigator shield cast to go off. You can also Zephyr this if people aren't fully topped. So again, I expect he will cast Castigator shield in any minute. So I echo everybody, Verdant Embrace, and then again cast Spirit Bloom. So handling it like this, and if nobody soaks prematurely, it's actually the easier part of the fight. Healing the dots is a bit more challenging because it doesn't follow. It's not as formulaic, so you have to think, okay, what am I gonna cast next? Whereas the Castigator shield, you can just use Lifebind, Spirit Bloom. But I also messed that up a bit in the sense that I don't have Lifebind, Spirit Bloom available right now. Actually, I do. I can still do it. It's not on everybody, but it's still okay. Again, I'm in the situation where I have a bit of trouble with my mana. And then, if that's the case, then my echoes and my mana regeneration in Disintegrate are sort of competing for resources. Which means, you see I'm hammering echo, but I don't have the resource for it. So I would like to Lifebind Spirit Bloom, this Castigator shield cast, but I can't do that. Because I don't have the resources. And then we took a lot of damage. I insta-popped Rewind, just so to make sure that nobody dies. And now I use Communion. Not perfectly set up either, no life binds out for the Communion, but it still heals decently much, and it also allows me to recover a little bit of mana. So overall, this boss isn't very difficult if you expect the Castigator shield cast. Now I use Zephyr, and then just Lifebind, Spirit Bloom, and everybody's topped off, and then you can manage the dots going out on individual players from that point onward. So the Paladin is sprinting up the stairs. Luckily he doesn't die. Now I'd really like to use some mana regeneration. I try to get in a little bit of a drink, because I know it's gonna be a moment until Castigator shield cast, and I can heal him up with my Tip the Scales Fire Breath. And now I put Time Dilation on my Monk because he was a bit low, so that he doesn't get one shot from the Sacred Toll cast. Yeah, I'm really struggling with mana, as you can see. And actually I'm going to tell the tank in a minute that he should wait before the next pull, because the next pull is quite challenging with some random purifications going out in the midst of Sacred Tolls. And I really don't want to start this pull with 10 or 20% mana. You can manage reasonably well as an Evoker with low mana, because you can always weave in some Disintegrates, which will give you mana back, and your Fire Breath also heals a lot with the Living Flames that you can shoot out afterwards, but the time is good, so it's absolutely not necessary to pressure ourselves into pulling much faster. I mean, we could have two-chested, I guess, but still, I'd rather be safe. So this pull is challenging in that it has two paladins, so there is a lot of AoE damage going out, and it also has some single target component in there with you can see on me with the purification on me. I also get a smite on myself, so I use Zephyr to get ahead of the Sacred Tolls, and then I use Spirit Bloom. It's not perfectly set up, but it's still fine. I have my 4 Living Flames as a backup, which I can shoot out immediately if somebody drops low, or if people are low before the Sacred Toll goes out. And then I use them on the then I use them, saying that I use them on the enemy pack, which, yeah, might not have been the best choice, but I use the Communion instead to avoid any excessive damage. So yeah, it's good to watch your own gameplay back like this, because sometimes I say things of how I play and then I do something differently. Overall, I don't think I planned the pulls particularly well in this dungeon. I think I did well on the first set of paladins and I managed for the most part, but going out of this key I didn't feel like I played particularly well. Yeah, and this is the problem. I didn't really have anything. Did I have the time dilation up? Let's see again. Sorry for jumping back a bit, but purification. Ah, no, I don't have anything. You can see, I don't have time dilation. I don't have obsidian scales. I do have a rescue, which I underuse, so I could have given myself a shield to live this sacred toll. I might have pressed rewind. Might have saved me actually, but generally, yeah, I should have had a defensive for it, and I just got tapped by the sacred toll. So maybe renewing blades could also have saved me because it would have already healed back some of the damage from the purification. Ah, well, live and learn, I guess. You can also precast the Spirit Bloom to heal the Sacred Toll damage immediately. Not sure if I did this correctly there. And also the Fire Breath is also good to heal the Sacred Toll damage, because if the group of enemies is large enough, then the Fire Breath will do a lot of damage, and thereby also a lot of healing to the whole group. Actually, I'm running Signet of the Priory in this key, because it just gives some additional damage and additional haste. I'm contemplating running this Candle King thingy. So in a situation like this, where there's a big AoE hit going out, and also some single target damage, you're able to shield the target which is low, and sort of equalize the HP of this target with the rest of the group which is topped up. Might be the safer version, but yeah, I do like my damage. Although I'm not particularly happy with the damage I did in this dungeon either, so I was mostly focused on keeping my teammates alive. And with some more routine, I guess, you will find ways to increase the damage that you can do as well. So apart from the first pull in this room, unless people pull poorly in the sense that they overpull, there isn't really much danger going on. I think there's an individual paladin somewhere still, and then there's some fireball volley casters, which just need to be interrupted. And then of course there's the mini boss in the middle. The purification you can, like I said, you can always use just echo reversion for the golden hour effect, and it's usually easily enough to keep the people topped. It's also what I do in solo shuffle PvP if a person is targeted single target, which essentially is all of solo shuffle PvP, is always single target. I do keep my cooldowns, I keep my stasis, rewind, Emerald Communion for the Baron Brown Pike in the middle. It's not really necessary, actually, so as a preservation evoker, this fight is relatively easy. There isn't much danger, on this level at least. So it's pulsing AoE damage, which you can handle really well. It always takes a bit of setup time, so we do drop a bit low in the beginning, but I then use Tip the Scales, Spirit Bloom in the stasis, Temporal Anomaly, and now I would have liked to also put a Dream Breath in there, but didn't really manage to do it because it wasn't ready, so I use it now. And now with Zephyr and the full stasis up and all my defensive cities still ready, there's essentially no danger of this mob having any sort of posing any sort of problem. I do let the group intentionally drop a little bit lower. I also make to use the stasis. I also make sure that people have reversion up, because then they will get additional healing from all of my healing spells. So try to never let the reversion drop off. This is where I use temporal anomaly. I usually put the main reversion on the tank, and then the other ones are mainly for the additional healing effect. In encounters where there's no tank damage, and then you can also put the main reversion on just some random other target.
Foolish outsiders! Beledar's sacred flame will simply raise him back to duty.
And now this pull is generally not very interesting. It's just a bunch of mobs which do AoE damage when they die. I've been told that if they are stunned when they die, they don't do the AoE damage. I'm not really sure if that's true or not. Yeah, you can just use a defensive in the end, I guess, if they all seem to be dying at the exact same time. I think what I do here is use Communion, because I want to regenerate some mana, and I figure that it will come up in the boss fight again at the very end. But it's not really needed in the boss fight either. Yeah, I use Communion. Lifebind isn't perfect, it's only on 2 people, and it's also not when the main damage is going out, so a bit of miscalculation there. But overall it's okay. And I've regenerated a bit of mana with the Communion for the boss fight. And now I sit down to drink a little bit more. It's not really necessary, I don't think, for the boss. Boss doesn't do a whole lot.
Flame will cleanse your transgressions!
Holy
Burn by
flame.
sacred flame!
So once again, I
Be purified!
usually try to keep reversion on all of my healing targets, so that they benefit from the additional healing. Now I Lifebind, I turn around and I cast Spirit Bloom. That's essentially what I always do when she casts Blinding Light. You can pre-cast it so that you heal off the damage immediately, and yeah, then you just heal this pulsing damage. Dream Breath is pretty good if you get it on the group with Call of Ysera active. Then
Inner fire.
yeah, this boss doesn't do a lot of damage. What is a bit challenging is when you do get the beam which follows you around on yourself, like I do now, because you can't cast your empowered spells while moving. So the whole plan with the Spirit Bloom sort of goes out the window in this case. But I think I had 4 Living Flames stacked and shot them out. Unfortunately the Warlock was out of range. So yeah, range restrictions are a thing with Evoker. In this dungeon not so much, not particularly difficult dungeon. I do usually, when I play with pugs, I do run the Spatial Paradox. It has a ridiculously high cooldown, I guess, but it increases the range of your spells significantly for, I think, like 10 seconds or something. And so you can emergency heal any target, even if it's very far away. It's useful, especially in Rookery, on the first boss if somebody gets split off. And also on the last boss, which is an absolute nightmare as a preservation evoker. If you're playing in a pack, if you're playing in a group, everybody can be in the middle and it's okay. But in a pack, everybody's on all sides and you're just running around the whole time. Anyway, this boss doesn't do a lot here. I am spec'd into Landslide. Not sure if I'm using it here. So I can root the mobs in place if they ever come up.
Holy flame.
I use Landslide to just take out any additional risk, but there wasn't really any risk to begin with.
Blinding light.
So Blinding Light,
1.
turn around, apply Lifebind,
Flame.
pre-cast Spirit Bloom, and everybody's topped up immediately. And now I cast a Dream Breath. Oh, I wanted to cast a Dream Breath, but interrupted it. Cast a Dream Breath,
Inner fire.
and yeah.
Holy
There's not much damage going on in this fight if people don't get hit by anything. And it's very simple with the turning around Spirit Bloom thing.
blinding light. 2.
Which I say, and then I mean I do have my stasis, but still.
Inner fire.
And then she dies. We did time it. Was decent, could have been faster, I could have played better, but I'm still reasonably happy with the result. Okay guys, thanks for watching.